Bam, welcome to the Real Talk Sports Show. I'm your host, Minister Jonathan Simmons, and we thank God for those of you who are watching us here on various platforms, wherever you are tuned in. We also appreciate those of you who are listening on the legendary WIGO Pacesetter 1570 on your dial. Appreciate you for doing that. Remember, you can watch us on any social media platform or follow us on our social media on Real Talk Sports, the number 7. That's so you can find out more about us and check out our show. Please, if you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do. Hit the like button and subscribe. So again, we're very thankful for those of you who are here. As you can see, I'm broadcasting today from my regular job, which is at Allen Vigil Ford in Lincoln. We are here working today on the holidays, but we want to make sure to give you the sports update from what's going on around the world of sports. And certainly there's always lots of stuff going on. Let's get right to it. Number one, the NBA. Those of you who have tuned into the NBA, you know that it is now a 2-0 lead in both series. Shockingly, out in the West, the Mavericks have turned the tables and did to the Timberwolves what the Timberwolves did to the Nuggets. They have come into Minnesota and knocked off the Timberwolves not one but twice. They now have a 2-0 lead in their series. Luka Doncic hitting a spectacular three-point shot over Rudy Gobert to give the Mavericks a 109-108 victory over the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I got to tell you, watching that game, I'll tell you what it looked like to me. It looked like the moment got a little bit big for the young Timberwolves, especially Anthony Edwards, who so far in the series has not really looked like himself. He looked like the moment literally has gotten too big for him. Now, we still have, obviously, the series in front of us, but they have yeoman work to do, down 2-0, heading into Dallas. And with Luka Doncic playing like, hey, I'm about to go and try to get me a ring. Also with Kyrie Irving being willing to take once again, being able to take the secondary role to a stellar performer. Kyrie Irving was the big man in the first game. And then last night, he just basically held court, and the Mavericks up 2-0. Now, what's interesting is that, of course, anytime people here, especially in Atlanta, or really say around the national media, mention Luka Doncic, of course, he's tied to Trae Young because and a big draft day trade, for those of you who were in a cave, basically the Dallas Mavericks traded Luka Doncic to Trae Young on draft day, and they gave the Hawks a first-round lottery type pick the next year in compensation for trading those picks. And so every time either one of these guys does something to move their team or move the needle on their team closer and closer to an NBA championship, they are, of course, compared one to another. And now many people are feeling some kind of way. I think more in the national media than in the local media, that somehow the Hawks got the short end of the stick. Now, I will tell you that at the end of the day, if you look at what's happened over the last 3 or 4 years, Luka does have an edge because his team has now, for the third time, got to the conference title series, and whereas Trae Young's only done it once in that spectacular 21-22 year when the Hawks literally electrified the city, getting to the Eastern Conference Finals against the eventual champions, the Milwaukee Bucks. And really, had it not been for a Trae Young injury and also an injury to DeAndre Hunter, who knows? The Hawks might have been able to advance to the NBA Finals, but they did not. And unfortunately, since that team did what they did, they really have kind of gone backwards. You know, they have now on their second coach since that time period, and after looking like all they needed was 1 or 2 players to get to the next level, the Hawks have regressed. Meanwhile, the Mavericks have made the trades that they've needed to make, including bringing in Kyrie Irving, a guy that's already had NBA championship experience and won a chip. And this year, it has finally gelled, because people forget at the beginning, it did not quite work too well. A lot of people were saying, okay, you know, this Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic thing is a bust. Matter of fact, they didn't go to the playoffs at all. I think people forget that as they're making this narrative about, oh, you know, the Hawks got a bad deal and so forth and so on. Don't be wrong. I mean, Luka is going to be, and already has shown that he is a potential Hall of Fame player. I mean, his numbers are just incredible. The guy's been averaging almost a triple double since he has been in the league. So we don't want to take anything away from him. However, we don't want to take away anything from Trae Young either. A guy that has been averaging right around 25 points and 10 assists. Okay, in the NBA, 3-time All-Star. So you can say what you want about bad in the deal. Trae has held up his end of the bargain, has done that without a legitimate big man. I mean, no disrespect to Clint Capella. Clint has been everything the Hawks have asked for and probably more. But at the end of the day, he's not a traditional big man. And oftentimes what happens is that when they're playing against bigger teams, the Hawks have some problems from time to time defending. But no big man, no real scorer, consistent scorer from the wing position. You know, we thought we had that with John Collins, but one of the things I think that I'm just telling you, Hawks fans, I think sometimes here in Atlanta, we're delusional. I mean, I really do. I think sometimes that we just get so caught up in the idea once our team gets close that, oh, we're just a piece away from a championship. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, you have to have the right pieces in place. You have to have good team chemistry. All these things are going to make a difference to whether, in fact, your team is going to be a championship caliber team or not. And the Hawks have consistently, over these years they've had Trae, have kind of really mismanaged this team. You know, first of all, they decided in their own wisdom that they wanted to get rid of two players that kind of were the triumvirate, so to speak, of the young guns that we thought were going to take the next move. They got rid of John Collins. They got rid of Kevin Huerter. Now, a lot of people complain about John Collins all the time. They say, hey, the guy is inconsistent, blase, blase. But at the end of the day, he was consistent in this. He came out and played hard every single game. He averaged about 15 points and somewhere around 8 or 9 rebounds a game, and he was a decent defender. Well, you bring in Saddiq Bey, who gets you about the same amount of points, but he's not the same defender that John Collins is defensively. And he didn't have really, because he's new, he doesn't have that cachet or that kind of familiarity with, you know, kind of the way things are done here in Atlanta. With Kevin Huerter, he goes out there to Sacramento and is part of that now consistent playoff team. And people say, oh, dude, what's the big deal? He's only averaging about 12 points a game. The point is that what he was able to do is space the floor. Excellent three-point shooter, another deep three-point option outside of Trae. So it doesn't seem like much. And you say, well, brother, they had all those pieces in place and they still didn't go any farther. They went backwards. That's not the point. The point is that you have a team, you have some chemistry there. And I think it was a situation where in the Hawks case, they just did not do the right thing in terms of adding the right pieces to come in with Trae. And, you know, for those people who are flipping out and saying about his defense, all that kind of stuff, the guy's 6'1" and weighs about 180 pounds. So what kind of defense do you expect him to play against these top guys who are larger than he is? I mean, this is nothing new. They've had small point guards throughout the history of the NBA, and these teams have won chips. So let's get off of that. The whole thing is that this team has been mismanaged the last couple of years. Some of it, I guess, is because of monetary reasons. I'm not sure. But the bottom line is that, you know, you don't just give up a guy who is an all-star player, okay? I mean, like I said, let's not be delusional, folks. You got an all-star player. You build around that. I know people say, oh, well, the other all-stars have been traded. I get what you're saying. But, okay, if you're going to trade him, you're going to make sure to get something, the equivalent back. And where are you going to do that? Where are you going to make that trade? What are you going to bring back in? I know you say you got DeJounte Murray. He's an outstanding point guard. He is. But why can't we find a way to make those two guys work instead of just, you know, saying, hey, we're going to trade one or the other? You've already invested a lot of capital in both of these guys. And like I said, I know teams have recovered. I look at a team like San Francisco in football, you know, who basically wasted a number 3 overall pick in Trey Lance in football, and they've been fine. But this is not San Francisco. Every franchise is different. And to me, the Hawks trying to build a winning culture, trying to build a team that consistently play in the playoffs, I think they need to get back to basics. It's just about building a team that is a versatile team, getting some bigs, which we told all this time we got enough bigs. No, we need some guys that can really play in the paint. Now, the good news is the Hawks have the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft. The bad news is this is one of the worst NBA drafts in years. From everybody's opinion, there's no really big standout. Even this guy that everybody's saying should be the number one pick, Alexander Sarr. I mean, people are thinking he be a starter, but not going to be an all-star. So you don't have that type of game-changing pick as Hawks pick number one. So they just need to continue to build, try to make a trade. But the bottom line is I think this whole thing about Luka and trade, they need to kind of get off that thing. A lot of this stuff is just for clicks because, you know, people on both sides of the story, it makes people irritated. I get it. So that's it. What we're going to do, guys, we're going to take a quick little break here. And you're listening to Real Talk Sports Saturday Sports Update. Keep it locked. And when we come back, we're going to talk some football, especially, you know, I asked this question when I posted this episode. Is sports making you mad? I mean, here's some things right here. We're talking about this Hawks thing. People are irritated. But overall, is the stuff that's going on in sports, especially football and college football, is it making you mad? I'd like to get your opinion. Let's talk about it some more when we come back from the break of the Real Talk Sports Show. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
Did you know that Allen Vigil Ford in Morrow, Georgia also has Lincoln? Over 35 years of using the Vigil Touch to provide excellent customer service, works hand in hand with the Lincoln Motor Company to provide a luxurious and seamless way to acquire your next luxury vehicle. Lincoln has an array of full-service complimentary owner benefits. These benefits include hospitality partnerships, service pickup and delivery, all which can be accessed through the Lincoln Way app. You can even contact the 24/7 concierge to have someone assist you. Come and see our great inventory of new and pre-owned Lincolns today. Call 678-364-7345 to make an appointment with one of our brand champions or shop 24/7 online at allenvigillincoln.net.
This is OJ Howard with Real Talk Sports.
What's up, guys? This is Tim Tebow. You're listening to Real Talk Sports.
This is Charles Woodson. Let me grab the mic. You ready? This is Charles Woodson with Real Talk Sports. Hey, it's your boy JB Smooth with Real Talk Sports.
All right, we're back. You're listening or watching the Real Talk Sports Show as we broadcast you, first of all, on the radio, on the incredible, I should say the legendary WIGO Pacer 1570. Remember, you also can listen to them online at WIGO1570.com. And one last thing. Did you know that WIGO is available on an app? That's right. It's TuneIn. That's the name of the app, TuneIn. Put in there. It is a completely free app. When you go on there, you just have to kind of hit the X button to get off the 30-day trial and just go right there. It is free. Put in WIGO 1570 in the search engine and voila, you get WIGO full broadcasting 24/7 right there in your app. That means you can take us anywhere as you travel. So please do that. And remember, follow us, the show, on social media at Real Talk Sports, the number 7. Anywhere you go on social media, I don't care if it's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, that's where we are. Go on Real Talk Sports, the number 7, and please follow us right there if you don't mind. Thank you so much. All right. I always tell myself, hey, I don't want to be the angry guy and the angry old guy in the barbershop. Remember when you were kids, you go in the barbershop, and you always had that guy who was always saying, oh, things were better in my day. Players were better. Food was better. Everything was better. I really don't want to be that guy. I'm trying not to do that. However, the things I am seeing, especially in college football and college sports in general, is making me feel some kind of way. This whole thing I'm seeing now with the NIL and with the lawsuits and the idea of players now potentially being employees, I'm kind of over it. I mean, it even kind of makes me get to the point where I almost don't want to cover sports anymore. It's just the greed and hypocrisy has reached epic levels. The same college presidents and conference commissioners over the years, most of my adult life, complained about, college is different. We don't want to pay the players. This is college. This is not professional. blase, 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 as they recorded record profits, multi-billion-dollar TV deals, nothing to the athlete at all, which I thought was wrong. Now, however, because especially in college football, these big conferences, the Power Five, have basically neutralized and taken all the teeth away from the NCAA. Now that we've instituted the NILs, it's like the Wild Wild West. And now they're talking about the idea of letting private equity firms invest into NIL collectives, which, oh, by the way, like Deion Sanders very, very prophetically talked about, he said the NILs are not being used properly. They're actually, in fact, pay for play. Play for play. Yeah, play for play. So if you look at, and that's funny, when I thought about the NIL, you guys can't see the document here, but I have a document. Recently, I competed in a contest with Ford to do a video talking about how my clients enjoyed electric vehicles. And good news, I'm actually a finalist, and I'm actually going to win a small prize. Now, in order for me to get the prize, Ford sent me something called the following: authorization to use for my client business name, image, and likeness, aka NIL. Okay. And basically what that says is that we have the right to use your likeness or your image and your name on our in our contest to show people this winning video. Now, obviously, in this particular case, they're not being compensated. But again, NIL stands for name, image, and likeness. You are being paid or you are being compensated in some way for the use of your name, your image, or your likeness. And that is what the spirit and the intent of passing this for college students, that college students could now not be penalized if, in fact, they sign jerseys, they sign autographs, or they should get a piece of the compensation if their jersey with their name and number on the back, which is why people want it, being sold in stores like Foot Locker and other stores, Champ, they should get a piece of that, and rightfully so. However, that's not what has happened since the NILs have come along. The schools, thanks to their greedy and egotistical boosters, they say, hey, we want to be able to forget all that stuff. We want to be able to get the best players to come here. So we just want to have this NIL collective. We're able to basically do what we've been doing for years, openly and publicly, which is basically compensating the players for coming to our school. And the schools that were the biggest and the baddest and had the biggest war chest, they were able to pay the most money. And suddenly, which is you're seeing coaches like Nick Saban retiring, coaches getting out of the head coaching position, because they said now the issue is no longer can you be a part of a winning team? Can you get a good education and make some great contacts at our school and play some ball? And can you, in fact, be compensated in some way, shape, or form if you're an outstanding player? Instead, it's now every conversation is about how much you're going to pay me. Well, that's kind of like pro. I mean, it really is. I mean, that's no different than a free agent. And then you couple that with the portal. Now, it's all about, like I said again, how much you're going to pay me. Not my experience at the school. Not am I going to enjoy myself. Not is the school going to give me some great education. And don't be wrong, I'm not dumb. I know that most D1 athletes, education is very secondary. I get it. A lot of times they taking powder puff courses, and the degree they got is worth little or nothing. However, that's not true with all the athletes. A lot of the athletes go in there and they have been able to parlay their experience in college and able to take them far down the road. And not only just the education in the classroom, but the connections you make, what you learn in terms of dealing with people, what you learn in terms of dealing with the media, what you learn in terms of how to basically be part of a team, facing adversity, dealing with adversity. All that stuff comes when you continue to matriculate on in your college career. Well, now it's not about that. Now it's the tail wagging the dog. And don't be wrong, I understand that the coaches have been skipping around. I understand the universities make a lot of money, but it's our obligation as a society to say, for someone who is younger, people who are making their way in life, we as the adults in the room should be the adults in the room. I'm just saying, because here's the thing, this thing is starting to filter down all the way down to high school. I'm seeing it now. I do high school coverage. So you're going to have kids thinking more and more about going to school just strictly because of what I'm getting a check for versus, hey, is this going to be the best experience for me? I'm just saying, I'm not trying to say that you should do away with the NIL, but it should be the NIL. It should be like somebody should be able to come here. Mr. Vigil should be able to say, okay, I'm going to compensate a young man, and he's going to do a commercial saying, hey, you know what, when I get out of school, I'm looking to get a Ford or a Lincoln, whatever it may be, or maybe buy a restaurant. Okay, you know what, when I'm at home, you know, I get all my food from restaurant X, Y, and Z, Joe's Barbecue Shop, whatever it may be. I'm just saying, that's what NIL is about. NIL is about name, image, and likeness, not give me a check for coming to your school. Is it me? Am I going crazy? Put your comments in social media. If you think, if you're thinking, hey, I'm just the angry old man, you know, let the kids alone, let the people play, let me know. Hit us up. Or you can call a station, 404-361-1571, and give your comments to our board operator. See, that guy Simmons is crazy. I think that Simmons makes a good point. Let us know. We'd love to get feedback. Let's go to social media. We have some feedback right here. We got Walter. He's saying, hey, you lost me with the NIL comments. Yeah, so the thing I'm saying, Walter, is this, is that it's the NIL in its theory it stands for, I just read it, name, image, and likeness. The idea is that a player is supposed to be compensated for the use of his or her name, image, or likeness. In other words, like I said again, if you're promoting a product, if your jerseys are being sold, okay, all that you should be compensated for because they're using NIL, your name or your image or a reasonable facsimile thereof. And for me, because it's not being handled properly, because it's not being used that way, I think it's a travesty. And at some point, especially when you talk about private equity firms investing into NIL collectives, dude, I'm going to explain something to people. This is why we have a housing crisis in Atlanta. You have corporations who have come in and enlisted in the area where I live in South Metro Atlanta, have bought up 19,000 homes and are not putting them back on the market. They're just renting them all. That might be a great investment. That might be a great return on investment, but that is wrecking our society. The average person can no longer get a home anymore. They can't get a starter home. They're through the moon. Rents are through the moon. Why? Because private equity has gotten involved. And it's all about the dollar, not about the community at large. And yes, does that make me mad? Yes. And Walter, hopefully that gives you a better explanation on why I'm feeling some kind of way. All right, enough of that. Before we got to wrap it up here. We have to talk Falcons. For those of you, again, who might have been behind the curve, there has been a continued conversation involving the Falcons and their decision to draft a quarterback in the first round after having signed a contract worth about $180 million with a veteran quarterback by the name of Kirk Cousins. And of course, Kirk is constantly being pestered at every press conference, questions on how he's feeling, if he knew Atlanta was going to do this, would he have come to Atlanta? The realities are this. This Falcons team is, in its construct, a really good team. And so far, from all the clips that we've seen, again, the players are not in pads, you can't hit anybody, but in what we've seen in the practice film, it looks like Kirk is starting to get the rust off him. The first couple of shots they show of him throwing the ball, hey, man, that ball looks very wobbly. And this throw that he had to Kyle Pitts that went kind of viral, like he kind of underthrew the ball. However, in the last couple of clips I've seen of Kirk, the ball has had a little bit more zip. The spiral has been a little bit more tighter. And I think that Kirk mentioned this. He said, hey, throughout my career, it's always been an issue of me having to compete. And I think, and I've mentioned this before, the moves the Falcons are making now are a spiritual thing. They're bringing guys in that they know are good guys, they're bringing guys in that they know have a good character and will be a good fit on this team. Now, you'll say, well, brother, how on earth will you think it's a good fit when you bring in a veteran quarterback, pay him a lot of money, and then bring in a rookie quarterback who a lot of people think could be one of the best 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the draft from this year? Well, funny you should mention that. Most of the guys the Falcons have drafted are high character guys. And in the case of Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix Jr., who they drafted, both those guys are Christians. They're both born-again believers, and they're both quote-unquote men of faith. I think that that's going to be very critical and why the Falcons went ahead and made this move, because they felt that these guys had the character and the ability to deal with what on the outside would appear to be a controversy and adversity. The other thing, too, is as Kirk Cousins himself said, he said, hey, man, this is nothing new for me. I've had to compete everywhere I've been, and I've been put in this situation before. He said, put in that situation at Michigan State when him and Nick Foles, Nick Foles, the guy that won a Super Bowl with the Eagles. Yeah. They brought in Kirk Cousins. Oh, by the way, got this other guy in. And Kirk Cousins became a Michigan State legend, winning some huge games, including some late game heroics over at the University of Michigan. Fast forward to Washington. He gets drafted by the Washington then Redskins, who had just been picked up in the draft RG3, which people forget. RG3, especially his first 2 years, was electric before the injury. He was a guy that was a Heisman candidate. They bring Kirk in after drafting him, but guess what? RG3 gets hurt. Kirk eventually takes over for the team and brings them to the playoffs. Nothing new for Kirk. Goes to Minnesota. Same thing. People are like, well, who's Kirk Cousins? He goes in and he becomes a really efficient player. Is he elite? I don't know if you want to say that. People say that about Matt Ryan. Now, once Matt Ryan left, we got a different opinion. We say, oh, maybe he was. The bottom line is Kirk Cousins has the mental and intestinal fortitude to be able to turn this apparent controversy into what I think is going to be a huge blessing for Falcons fans, because he's going to be playing with a chip on his shoulder now, like never before. That he's going to prove that I'm worth all this money. And if he does that, boys and girls, all I can tell you is it's going to be good times in Mercedes-Benz, as the Falcons should, and I believe they will, be able to win the division, win a home playoff game, and then once that happens, who knows what happens after that. All right, guys, we appreciate all those of you who locked it in here with us today on the legendary WIGO Pacer, the 1570, and all across social media, and those who are watching on the archive. Remember, the preacher wants to tell you before I go, get to know the Lord Jesus Christ, your personal Savior. That's your way to have a great life here upon the earth and to go to heaven when you die. And you avoid that nasty place called hell where nobody wants to be with the devil, all them crazy demons. I'm just saying. Well, guys, we appreciate you. Remember, follow us anywhere on social media at Real Talk Sports 7. Until the next time we get back together again, I just simply tell you, as I do each and every week, God bless you and have a wonderful rest of your day or evening, whichever may apply. So long, and take care.